Hello friends, today we'll again be discussing the poems of Emily Dickinson, and the next poem is A Bird Came Down the Walk. So in the present lecture I'll be talking about the development of thought and a sort of introduction of the poem that we'll be studying in our next lectures. So the poem A Bird Came Down the Walk is a very popular poem by Emily Dickinson, and it is focused on a very small creature, a small bird. She here describes the bird as it comes in the garden, but the choice of words that Dickinson uses makes the poem a very memorable one, a very special one. The poem focuses on the separation between the worlds of man and nature, and it also develops the theme of nature's indifference by including other questions of fear and struggle. When we go through the poem, we see that the stanza 1 shows the arrival of a bird on its routine walk on land, and the bird is unaware, or she is not aware of the presence of the speaker who is closely observing it. The bird cuts the angleworm in halves which she is eating. The angleworm is her food. So the poetess or the speaker is seeing the minute details of the life of the bird. When the bird is cutting the angleworm in half and starts eating it raw, it is totally identified with nature and is extremely hostile to the worm which it eats, because it's the food for the bird. So she is not, in a way, she is enjoying the food, so she seems to be hostile towards the the worm. In the second stanza, the bird tries to quench its thirst by drinking the dew which was easily available on the blades of grass, because you already know that in the morning there is dew on leaves, grass and all, and the bird is in the garden at the time when the dew has not evaporated. The dew is still there on the blades of the grass. So after eating the worm, the bird tries to quench its thirst by drinking the dew from the blades of grass, and then the bird suddenly jumps aside to the wall to let the beetle cross without offering any obstruction or resistance. So there is a beetle which the bird is trying to avoid or don't want to obstruct it or resist its way. It is in a way politely indifferent to the beetle. This murderous act, which murderous? The killing of the worm, humanizes the little creature and places it in a very diminutive animal world. So the speaker is relishing her secret by which she was spying the bird's activity, and this produces tragic tensions in this situation. The poet's sudden courteous behavior toward the beetle, or the bird's sudden courteous behavior toward the beetle in the stanza hides the struggle among nature's creatures for survival that is witnessed in the stanza first. Now the third stanza shows that the bird looks around very rapidly in panic, and the bird's eyes look as if she is frightened. The words frightened beads. She seems to be frightened from something, and she is moving her eyes very rapidly, rolling wildly in the grass. The poet here observes that moving its velvety head, which brought him closer to it, the natural habitat is being attacked, and the speaker praises the beauty of the bird under stress, which she seems to be, because she is jumping and she is moving her head rapidly and she is moving her eyes this stress which is implied by the metaphors of its eyes like beads and its head like velvet. So the poet uses these metaphors to enhance the beauty of the words. The bird's sense of fear and danger is intensified, and a sort of intervention of the speaker seems to be there. The bird seems to be sensing some fear and finally flies away. The speaker's attempt to reconcile with nature fails in the end. Means the bird, some things are there which are try to harm the bird, or the bird feels so that something is there which can harm her. So a mutual harmony between nature is destroyed. The fourth stanza shows that the speaker is invoked by the plight of the bird. Means because the bird flies away because of some danger that she apparently feels, the speaker here is invoked by the suffering, the plight, the sadness of the bird, and he offers it crumbs of some things to appease its fear of being cornered. Now the speaker here finds himself in danger as the bird is about to flee. And the fifth and the last stanza shows the wing motion of the bird, which may be compared to that of the oars rowing through the seamless sea to take it home. The speaker's final try or bid to identify with the bird fails in the end. The bird departs into the ocean of air where all of creation is seamless, means there are no boundaries, and the speaker estranges from other things, rowing on the ocean and seeing the butterflies as they are swimming in the sea. So the closing lines show the butterflies jumping majestically in the hot sands into the liquid coolness of the sky, which portrays a world of aesthetic perfection. So the poem in a way is trying to deal with the perfect natural habitat of the bird, but the hindrances, the fear, the in the nature for the small creatures can also be seen. Thank you. We will continue with the poem in our next lecture.